The story of Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village on the edge of a large forest, there lived a kind and cheerful girl. She always wore a bright red-hooded cloak, and that's why everybody called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother packed a basket full of freshly baked bread, honey, and warm soup. "Take this to your grandmother, my dear," her mother said. "She's not feeling well, and a warm meal will do her good. But remember, stay on the path and don't talk to strangers." Little Red Riding Hood set off through the woods, humming a tune as she walked. The forest was peaceful, with sunlight trickling through the leaves and birds chirping cheerfully. But as she wandered deeper, a shadow stretched across her path. Looking up, she found herself face to face with a tall, sleek wolf, with glimmering eyes and a sly smile. "Good day, little girl," the wolf said smoothly. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" Little Red Riding Hood hesitated. She remembered her mother's warning, but thought, surely a quick conversation can't hurt. "I'm taking food to my grandmother," she replied, holding up the basket. "She's not feeling well, so I'm bringing her something warm to eat." The wolf's ears perked up. "How kind of you, but tell me, where does your dear grandmother live?" "Matilda on her bed." "Just past the big oak tree, in the cottage with the blue shutters," Red said proudly. "It's not far from here." The wolf's cunning mind whirred with a plan. "That sounds like a lovely place. But look at all these beautiful flowers. Wouldn't your grandmother love a fresh bouquet? There are some just a little way off the path." Red's eyes lit up. "Oh, she would love that." She turned to pick some daisies and wild violets. As soon as she did, the wolf dashed down the path, his paws barely making a sound. When the wolf reached the grandmother's house, he knocked softly on the door. "Who is it?" came a frail voice from inside. "It's me, grandmother, your dear Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf mimicked in a high-pitched tone. Grandmother, being wise and cautious, peered through the window. She saw the wolf's shadow and knew at once that something was amiss. Without making a sound, she quickly hid inside the wardrobe, leaving a pillow under the blanket in her bed. The wolf, growing impatient, pushed the door open and padded inside. Seeing the lump in the bed, he licked his lips. "Ooh, what a nice plump grandmother you are," he murmured, leaping onto the bed. Only to be met with a pillow instead of a person. Confused, he looked around. Before he could react, he heard the door creak open again. Little Red Riding Hood had arrived, holding her basket and a bouquet of flowers. "Grandmother, I'm here," she called cheerfully, stepping inside. The wolf quickly got in the bed and covered himself with the blanket. "Oh, my dear," the wolf said, trying to act kindly. "What a surprise." Little Red Riding Hood, though young, was clever. She noticed something was different. "Grandmother, what big eyes you have." "The better to see you with, my dear," the wolf replied. "Grandmother, what big ears you have." "The better to hear you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what big hands you have." "The better to hug you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what big teeth you have." "The better to eat you with," the wolf growled, leaping towards her. But before he could catch her, there was a sudden bang. The wardrobe door flew open, and out sprang grandmother, holding a heavy iron pot in her hands. With all her might, she brought it down with a loud clang onto the wolf's head. The wolf yelped in surprise, stumbling backward. Little Red Riding Hood, thinking quickly, grabbed a heavy quilt from the bed and threw it over the dazed wolf. "Quick, tie him up," grandmother cried, grabbing some knitting yarn. Together they bound the wolf's paws and wrapped the quilt tightly around him. Panting, Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother stood over the bundled-up wolf. "What should we do with him?" she asked. The wolf groaned. "Please, don't hurt me. I was just hungry." Grandmother crossed her arms. "You tried to eat me, and then my granddaughter." The wolf whined. I know, but it's hard being a wolf. No one ever gives me food. They all run away. I only wanted a warm meal." Little Red Riding Hood and Grandmother exchanged a glance. After a moment they asked, "If you were hungry, why didn't you just ask? We would have shared." The wolf blinked. "You would have?" "Of course," Grandmother said, "but you can't just go sneaking into people's houses and scaring them. That's not how you make friends." The wolf looked ashamed. "I've never had a friend before," he admitted. Little Red Riding Hood smiled. "Then let's start now, but only if you promise no more tricking people." The wolf nodded eagerly. "I promise." Seeing his sincerity, Grandmother untied him. Together they sat at the table, where Red poured a bowl of soup and gave the wolf some bread and honey. He ate gratefully, his tail wagging. "This is the best meal I've ever had." From that day on, the wolf became a friend to Red and her grandmother. Instead of lurking in the shadows, he helped gather firewood, carried baskets from the village, and even chased away real dangers from the forest. No longer feared, he became a guardian of the woods, a kinder, wiser wolf, all thanks to the kindness of a little girl and her grandmother. And so, in their cozy little cottage by the big oak tree, Red, her grandmother, and their unlikely new friend lived happily ever after. Thank you for listening, and I hoped you liked this story. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I have plenty more fairy tales for you.